The PlayStation 1 is a console that helped define an entire generation of gamers. Coming out at the tail end of '95 in the West, the PlayStation 1 launched Sony into the gaming industry in the midst of wacky '90s advertising and became a mainstay with countless classics donning the brand. Spyro the Dragons, Gran Turismo, the Tekkens, Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy VII all helped launch this thing into the stratosphere, where it remains in the top 10 highest-selling consoles of all time. And it wasn't even a DVD player.
Take it back, take it back.
But beyond what's popular and strong in 2025, the PlayStation 1 was sporting a library of over 4,000 games across all regions, meaning a vast majority of those aren't getting introduced to new audiences anytime soon. Which is unfortunate because a lot of those classics are pretty cool. Like I've said it before, I'll say it again, Power Shovel, regardless of being a budget title in Japan, is one of the most dope games on the console. Want to knock down some buildings, move some dirt around, maybe assemble some plates of curry, or save turtles in a pool. Power Shovel clears. So that brings us here. Last month we released a cool PlayStation 2 games video, and y'all seem to dig that as much as I did making it, so now let's go back to when I was a wee child, slap down the disc tray cover, press power, and listen to the soothing sounds of wow.
So yo, it's Austin, and today we're gonna be entering a comfort zone and talking about some cool PlayStation 1 video games. Mostly because I finished playing all those Xbox 360 games last week and decided, you know what? I should play some Ridge Racer Type 4. And well, we'll get to that in a bit. So I've gone out and made a little showcase of games that I think deserve a spotlight, both good and bad, but also cool that highlight all the aspects of Sony's little 32-bit machine. We've got a lot to get into today, but before we get started, if you're feeling a little tired, why not kick back, maybe on top of today's sponsor, Titan Mattress. I think that everyone deserves a nice night of sleep, and these days I find that gets a little bit harder, especially nice rested sleep. I used to be able to pass out on airplanes for the entire ride. Not anymore. This here's today's sponsor, Titan Mattress. Quick, an unboxing montage with different angles. Titan mattresses come in multiple types of sizes, are all built with heavy-duty coils and high-quality foam, which means they'll resist sagging and sinking, so it feels fresh for years. All right, so now that we got it all unboxed, let's get this thing moved to the bed. Ooh, yeah! So I've had this Titan mattress for about 2 months now, and I got this queen-sized Titan Plus Elite, and it's practically overnight increased our sleep quality. Being an elder millennial means that suddenly everything hurts all the time, specifically my back in the morning, but the support from this mattress has really helped alleviate some of that. Also, anytime one of our night crawlers decides to make an appearance, Vivi and Freya, we would suddenly jolt awake, but not so much anymore. A new mattress is something that I would absolutely give a shot. It's something that you don't really know you're suffering from until you try something new or sleep on a friend's couch, which happens to be more comfortable than your bed. And thankfully, Titan mattresses have a limited lifetime warranty and come with a 120-night sleep trial so you can see if it's right for you. They're all designed, assembled, and shipped from their Arizona factory so they can create them with premium materials at a reasonable price and no middleman. Sent out in a box and sent straight to your door with free shipping in the US. Titan mattresses are designed for any body type, especially those who are big, tall, or strong. It's easy to buy online, it's easy to assemble, and packs a great value for the price. So if you need something supportive that actually holds up, this is it. Check out titanmattress.com, click the link below, or scan the QR code and use my code ERUPTION to get 30% off your order. Then let them know I sent you in the post-purchase survey. Check out Titan Mattress today. Thanks to Titan for the sponsor and new bed. But for now, we gotta kick it back to the 90s with the illest console of the era. That's 90s, right? Am I using it right? And I think we gotta get this ball rolling with the type of game that was a dime a dozen. I've got a soft spot for licensed games, and surprisingly, the PlayStation 1 has a lot of good ones. You just had to wade through the river Styx of awful ones first. Kiss Pinball, Terrace Kasi, Fantastic Four, Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Battle 22. Woohoo!
Beast mode.
While yes, it may be the licensed jank that brought us Raw Game Over Hulk feat, it also brought us Die Hard Trilogy. Die Hard Trilogy is a video game fever dream. Developed by Probe Entertainment, who you might recognize from Extreme G or the Alien Trilogy, Die Hard Trilogy is essentially 3 games shoved into one, none of which taken themselves seriously. I mean, just look at the thing.
Get him! Don't let him get away.
We've got, in order, Die Hard, a third-person shooter, one where John McClane's shoulder pops out of its socket with every step. This dude is built like Liefeld Captain America. Run around, shoot the baddies, and save the hostages, and move to the next area. Simple. The second one, Die Hard 2, Die Harder, is an on-rail shooter in the style of Virtua Cop, where it'll zoom in on the enemies as you pass them by, which means with emulation, you can really see these faces. These are just real people and expressions on 3D bodies. It's like I'm looking at South Park or some old Flash animation. It's so weird. Lastly, we've got Die Hard with a Vengeance, a driving game. Spawn in the taxi cab, pick up other vehicles, and run to the targets as fast as possible to stop a bomb from going off. Too late? Well. And that's it. For real, simply video games. The fun part is that all of these are built to be arcadey. There's no worrying about the story, character development, there's no save points. You got the objective, it's clear within seconds. Now make the score go up so you can impress your friends. I love the high score screen. It has you picking out letters that are attached to people. Oh, and also don't forget about the percentage tallies. Yippee-ki-yay! This game was a big seller on the PlayStation 1. It was the greatest hits release, and it ended up getting a sequel to Die Hard Trilogy 2, Viva Las Vegas, which is just a ridiculous name. But this one didn't fare anywhere near as well. Probably because it was a different developer. That first trilogy, however, total lightning in a bottle. Yeah, licensed games could really go either way here. I had a soft spot for Hercules growing up, or Disney's Hercules action game. It's hard not to. It was Eurocom making a rare 2D platformer on the PlayStation 1. It follows the movie closely, even making full levels out of the montage sequence. Not the hardest game out there, but the visuals looked awesome to me in '97 when this popped out. It felt like I was looking at the film, and it even had the original voice actors on board, so I could listen to Danny DeVito scream at me in the intro stage. Quality and Disney games might have been tied to Capcom for a while, but releases like this hold their head up just as high, though Darkwing Duck is still kind of the best. And speaking of quality licensed games, the older I get, the more I realize that Looney Tunes have had a pretty good track record. From those early Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle releases on the NES and Game Boy to Acme All-Stars on the Genesis, and Looney Tunes Space Race was dope. There's a lot of good ones to pick from, as long as it's not Loons. Which brings me to two games today, Looney Tunes Sheep Raider and Bugs Bunny Lost in Time. Starting with Lost in Time by, no joke, the people who made Dead by Daylight, Behavior Interactive. Bugs Bunny Lost in Time is a 3D platformer that earned 6 and 7s when it came out, but also one that deserved better. You time travel through different ages in order to collect time clocks, the same shtick as any old platformer, but it's got that classic Looney Tunes theme. Yeah, the classic time travel tropes. The models are very animated. Bugs has a lot of nuanced character in his animations, and the Looney Tunes sense of humor felt intact for what they were making. There might be better platformers out there, but Bugs Lost in Time does what it does well. Now for the banger. Looney Tunes Sheep Raider is a gem, and that's not just because Daffy Duck's flapping his gums the entire time.
Listen, bub, all you gotta do is relax and play the game. I gotta use this gig to catapult me to superstardom.
Also known as Sheepdog and Wolf overseas, Sheep Raider is a game that got good reviews that holds up today. The concept is a, well, loony one, starring one Ralph Wolf and not Wile E. Coyote, even though they look exactly the same. This has Daffy essentially bursting into his life and creating a television show about it. Ralph wants to eat sheep. Sam Sheepdog protect the sheep. Metal Gear Solid with an audience. If that doesn't immediately sell you, I don't know what will. Sheep Raider is a level-based affair where everyone is in on the joke except for Ralph Wolf. Daffy's got them all forced into the sheep capturing, with a plethora of 2D Looney Tunes characters cheer you on from behind the camera, and there's hundreds of ways to die. There's not a whole lot of games featuring, well, the antics of Wile E. Coyote trying to just get a snack, and I think this does a great job of recapturing that. Failure is met with usually a fun animation, followed by a quick load into a checkpoint. Thankfully, checkpoints checkpoints are frequent, which works well thematically as the deaths mimic the frequency of failures in the cartoon. You're gonna lose a bunch, it'll probably be entertaining, and then eventually you'll get the sheep. The game gradually expands on its mechanics. You'll be able to lure sheep in with food, pheromones, and hand fans. Various Looney Tunes characters show up like Porky Pig, Elmer Fudd. You'll get to use fun Acme gadgets and spend a whole lot of time running from Sam Sheepdog, who will kill you. All of this is wrapped in an extremely charming package with an incredible amount of detail put onto the animations. Seriously, some of these walk cycles are just whimsical. I love looking at, listening to, and playing Looney Tunes Sheep Raider. It's quickly joined the ranks of Acme All-Stars as one of my favorite Looney games, and if you have a hankering for something that mixes stealth and comedy, there's really nothing better. Except maybe Stealthing in Oblivion.
It's trash. Stop right there, criminal scum.
If you were around at the time, you more than likely saw a lot of those licensed games in stores. They were safe bets for publishers and all the kids wanted them. However, it's always the original stuff that sticks out in my brain. Thankfully, the PlayStation 1 is filled with strange games. It's just weird games, dude. The kind of stuff they definitely don't make anymore, like Skydiving Extreme. What is going on?
You win!
Also known in Japan as Aerodive, a much cooler name, this Natsume-published joint developed by Metro Corporation, the people who brought us 10,000 Bullets and Britney's Dance Beat, I'm not kidding. Extreme skydiving is a most simple affair. You pick a character, each representing different countries. We've got Iron Feather representing the USA, White Kiss from the UK, don't forget about Airwalkers in Japan, and Big Man.
Versus Big Man.
What you see is what you get. It's Skydiving Extreme. It's a QTE button masher where you're inputting commands as fast as you can. If you mess up, you break formation and fall faster than your opponent. You want to do more tricks to stay in the air longer to dive and dance better than the other country. It's a silly concept with barely any gameplay besides this. It can be beaten in like 30 minutes, but wow, the music slaps. Suddenly, the button presses are going so fast, it's like reading an expert chart in Guitar Hero, and before you know it, you're doing wheel formations in a dangerous thunderstorm. This is the kind of stuff video games were made for. Is it worth spending money on Skydiving Extreme? Absolutely not, but I sure love that it exists. It's basically bust a groove while falling with style. Wild 9, the fourth game by Earthworm Jim developers Shiny Entertainment, aka the one game with the words "torture your enemies" on the cover. Wild 9 is an interesting 2.5D platformer with an emphasis on, well, exactly that. You play as a guy named Wex Major with a weapon attached to his arm called the Rig, which allows him to do this. And do this, you will, 1,000 times over. Why? Well, you gotta max out the torture percentage after every level. But actually, it was Shiny experimenting with physics mechanics all the way back in 1998. You can pick up objects in the environment to slow puzzles, grab enemies and drop them over the cliffs, or toss them into horrible death traps. All while Wex here saying things like Wexcellent.
Excellent! Like, cool. Oh, I'll take that.
It seems like Interplay had high hopes for this one, as they pumped a ton of money into advertising. Wild 9 commercials would hit ABC, Comedy Central. It was on the demo discs that came with new PlayStation 1s. The game had that Earthworm Jim variety of levels changing gameplay mechanics and boss fights doing whatever they felt like doing.
Come here.
However, that didn't do a whole lot for reviewers at the time, with a wildly mixed range of scores, including a 5.1 from GameSpot, which is a little harsh. It's goofy, and I think there's a ton of fun to be had with Wild 9, although if we're honest, it's not quite up to the Earthworm Jim standard.
Groovy. Excellent.
A lot of weird PlayStation 1 games don't really have much for me to talk about, even if I love them, like the aforementioned Power Shovel, or a game I also love, Roll Away. Also known as Kula World in Europe, where it hit First, Rollaway is a simple Swedish puzzle game. You roll a ball into the goal, but you also have to deal with every stage from every perspective. If you go over the ends of platforms, suddenly the entire level shifts its perspective, which also influences the gravity if you need to jump from ledge to ledge. Very quickly, Rollaway becomes this crazy, mind-boggling puzzle platformer that is absolutely worth playing. There's not really anything else out there like it, and even the developer quickly moved on to making NetBaby World, one of the earliest browser-based shockwave game sites. I have no idea what this is, but I do know that Rollaway is really good, and you should play this hidden gem. It's perfect after a microwaved hot dog. No One Can Stop Mr. Domino has a bit in common with this. Developed by Art Dink, who you'd recognize from the new Dragon Quest HD remasters and Sword Art Online Lost Song, Mr. Domino is a classic puzzle game where you run a lap through a stage, planting dominoes to try and knock down switches on another run through. The more dommies in one combo, the better. However, this game is incredibly difficult. You can get slowed down or knocked around easily, and in the later stages, one bad move will have you hitting a restart. A super punishing puzzle game, but also there's really nothing else out there like it. Ever heard of Enix's Planet Laika? Chances are probably not. It was only recently fan translated into English. This one is bizarre. It's an RPG adventure game by Zek and Quintet, one of their last titles actually, but instead of having a traditional combat system, Planet Laika focuses more on the dialogue and exploration. Anytime a battle does occur, it's this, how do you describe this? Like Pong and also Space Invaders, where you gotta move the blue orb, the mind core in defense. Sure, this one is weird and dark. It's got a super unique sci-fi setting, and you experience it all through a character that has multiple personality disorder. And yes, that's a gameplay mechanic. I assume everyone was made into an anthropomorphic dog to offset the creepy tones. I haven't finished it yet, but now that there's a proper fan translation of a narrative that's supposed to be pretty good, and by the people who made Terranigma and Kowloon's Gate, this one's definitely worth checking out. Speaking of Quintet, they had a smaller team inside them called Shade, who were responsible for the Grand Stream Saga, an RPG that came out in '97. Its claim to fame was being one of the very first fully 3D polygonal RPGs. There's nothing pre-rendered here. Also, no expressions on the faces. Unfortunately, you can tell that's where they put the most effort into, as the rest of the game is very basic. It's hard for me not to compare the gameplay and exploration to Alundra, which did it better, although I thought the transition to combat was an interesting one. It's just also very basic. Nonetheless, a really cool oddity and a glimpse into what video games could become. Now, how about that roll cage? Yeah, not a lot to say here that you won't get from looking at the screen. Roll Cage is an insane racer made by Attention to Detail, who said, what if flipping over didn't matter? And gave us this wacky physics engine speed fest that's unlike anything else on the console, except maybe its sequel. Goofy PS1 CG cutscenes? Check. Easy to understand controls? Yep. How about power-ups, missiles, little bumps in the road causing you to lose all direction? You know it. Roll Cage is a cool little game that has absolutely held up to date. And lastly, let's take it down, and by that I mean underground, 20,000 leagues under the sea with a total hidden gem, Treasures of the Deep. Created by Black Ops Entertainment, the people behind X-Files, Resistance, Serve, and Warpath Jurassic Park, Treasures of the Deep is a game that's in the title. Assume control of an underwater explorer and get treasure. You start off with a tiny submersible and a pair of fins shooting at deadly creatures, submarine pirates, and other things before purchasing upgrades, new weapons, and finding rare treasures to take in. You'll mostly want to play this in the first person, so you're not going to see what your character looks like a lot of the time, but considering this came out in '97, this game was beautiful. It can be a little disorienting with the way some sharks like to swim around you so rapidly around the radar, but once you're in a flow, it feels great. It's simple, it's got an interesting narrative that happens in the background, and the whole experience is immersive in a way you wouldn't think that the PlayStation 1 could pull off. I could deal without the sharp flashing for every pickup, but it's a little late to let them know.
Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
Treasures of the Deep is cool, and for those who want a little Nicolas Cage national treasure with your PlayStation 1 first-person shooters, it's a good one. It should come as no surprise that I've got a penchant for the weird stuff. A game could be a straight-up 2 out of 10, and as long as it's not the end game of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, I'll probably have a good time with it. Which means I'm dubbing this next section kind of bad, but still cool, because Where else could I talk about a game like Courier Crisis? Yes! What is wrong with that dog's face? I love it! Courier Crisis is a video game that's frankly falling apart at the seams. The concept is a familiar one, as it's essentially Crazy Taxi. You're a bike courier. You pedal to pick up packages from people on the street to deliver them to their destination. However, this was developed in 1997 by New Level Software. Crazy Taxi would come out a full 2 years later. Courier Crisis is pretty close to that. You spawn into this world, punk rock starts blasting, you gotta punch people and dogs chasing after you. It's everything extreme 90s in a package that was almost universally scoffed at by reviews from the time. And well, they aren't wrong. As you move through the campaign, you'll earn money for new bikes, and slowly the challenge spikes hard. You'll have to start pulling off tricks to increase your speed and timers, although a vast majority of these levels are less than 2 minutes long, sometimes even like 40 seconds, so you don't get much time to practice before getting tossed into another loading screen. The collision detection will have you stuck on everything, and audio clips are repetitive and loud.
Over here! Over here! Over here! Over here!
Got it. Yet, for those of you who like to peek under the iceberg of a gaming console library, Courier Crisis is a fun oddity. It sure beats the heck out of the platinum trophy slop we see on digital stores. Prior to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, skateboarding games were all over the place. They'd usually be used for racing, like in the Extreme series, a little power-up for your dude in whatever platformer, and there was a rare skate game like Skate or Die and 720 Degrees. Street Skater, with the number 8, is a Japanese-developed skateboarding game known as both Street Boarders and The Skateboard when it was re-released into the Simple 1500 series. Yes, the same as Power Shovel, is a very colorful game that's a mix of racer and trick attack. You have strict time limits for each stage as you try to buff up a score to make it to the next one. A simple concept, but also the mechanics are so stiff. You're locked into doing very basic trick sequences. You just press a direction and the trick button and it'll just do one thing for you. This game's fine. However, the sequel is where it gets wacky. It's 2000. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater's taken the scene by storm, and EA decided, we have a franchise, let's do it again, and brought back on the developer Atelier Double to make another one of those targeting the States first. Street Skater 2 is an entirely different video game. Let's drop the fun, lighthearted ska punk and Less Than Jake and trade it in for Static X and Deftones, tone down the color palette again, and completely change the game to mimic Tony Hawk. But to be honest, it was for the better. Street Skater 2 is a much more refined experience to play, as they were absolutely trying to mimic some of that Hawk sauce, and it's easily one of the better Tony Hawk clones from the time. Still not great, reviews from the era were mixed, but I just think it's wild that EA essentially co-opted this standalone Japanese game to try and turn into a franchise stateside. Anyways, the developer would go on to make Disney Sports Skateboarding, yeah, not Extreme Skate Adventure, the other one, which was just unfortunate. How about Monkey Hero? Ah yes, the old loosely transcribed tale of Sun Wukong shoved into a cute manga-looking thing, with a title card that is most definitely ripping off Dragon Ball Z. Monkey Hero is a Zelda clone. A bad Zelda clone. Blam and Take-Two Interactive teamed up to bring this one to the PlayStation 1 with the intent of bringing that 2D Zelda experience to that console, but the game they created was unfortunately dated on arrival, 1999. This kind of looks like something that should have popped out on the Saturn, but this came post Alundra, Resident Evil 3, Ocarina of Time, Silent Hill, Gran Turismo, Final Fantasy VIII. So out of the gate, I mean, look at the screen. This feels a generation behind. The story is quite simple. You're the monkey, you gotta go to the dungeons to be bosses to save the realms. Certain dungeons have items to help you get past gated mechanics like hammering down pillars. It's the standard Zelda affair, just one with a Zelda's Adventure amount of feedback. There's this lack of sound effects and animation frames that make the monkey feel a bit disjointed, and the level design is never much more than go to the next area, but I think it's neat that someone tried to make something like this. Funny enough, I was playing this thinking that it wasn't so bad, before then watching a few seconds of Link's Awakening on the Game Boy and going, oh, yeah. But I do think there's a lot of love that was put into the world, the character designs, the music is pretty solid, and you can see bits and pieces of animation that were probably chopped up to make it work on console. console. I think Monkey Hero had the potential to be pretty neat, but if anything, this was a perfect rental back in 2000, which is exactly how I feel about Floating Runner Quest for the 7 Crystals. Dang, look at these vibes. Vibes that are immediately destroyed by looking at the American cover, especially compared to the Japanese one. Who is this guy? What did they do to old, Lei here? What kind of name is Lei? Coming out in January 1996, pretty early into the PlayStation 1's lifespan, Floating Runner is one of those pre-Mario 64 3D platformers, which is like 50-50 on the death sentence in most cases. And I suppose Floater would be trying to be more like Jumping Flash at the time, but I'd forgive you for looking at this and thinking that it was in the same vein as Bubsy 3D. Everything I could tell you about Floating Runner sounds terrible on paper. The time period it came out, the developers being responsible for virtual highlight, and review scores abysmal across the board. The control scheme is pure tank. The 2 camera angles will not help with depth perception in certain stages. The level selection is randomized depending on which color crystal you end a stage on, and for some reason the main weapon you have, the gun, does not shoot straight forward. It bounces on the ground and can completely overshoot enemies, meaning you'll be spending a lot of time doing this. Some jumps are incredibly frustrating. Sometimes the button presses don't feel super responsive, and there's no boss fights until the end, where you're greeted with utter nonsense. Thankfully, the game does know it's difficult, and you get unlimited continues at the cost of your score. No! However, despite all of that, I think Floating Runner Quest for the 7 Crystals hits a real specific niche of mine. It's a cool early 3D platformer before they knew how to do it. It's got a fun, bouncy original soundtrack. I like the character designs, and the entire visual style just speaks to me. This low detailed early 3D polygon look was only around for a short time, but it's so striking. You may not get a lot out of playing Floating Runner, but in order to understand just how revolutionary Mario 64 was, you should check this, Geograph Seal, and Jumping Flash out. As far as I can tell, this is like one of the first 5 3D platformers ever, and I just think that's neat. It's gaming history, dude, even if it turns into Doom levels of chaos. Bad and bizarre stuff has always been a favorite of mine, but for now it's time to talk about video games that people might actually know. Thankfully, the PlayStation is filled to the brim with absolute bangers that are worth your time. So, one more section for today, the classics. It's tough to talk about a console like the PlayStation 1 without bringing up some of the classics like Wipeout. Future racers? Yeah, I think so. Psygnosis' Wipeout franchise got its start on the PlayStation 1 before getting picked up by Sony proper, and it's impossible to play Wipeout XL, aka 2097, without loving it. Wipeout may be essentially F-Zero, but it was one of the first future racers to fully go 3D. Coming out in 1996, the second release was given massive critical acclaim, sports an awesome licensed soundtrack with artists like The Prodigy and the Chemical Brothers, and gives you nothing but high fructose future racing. Seriously, it might be perfect. Just be careful. Some of the stages will knock you down a peg. The newer Wipeout Omega collection with HD and Fury is probably my favorite in the series now, but 2097 remains easily the coolest racing game on the PlayStation 1. Well, Future Racer anyway, because R4 Ridge Racer Type 4 is just as good, and too many letters. Ridge Racer is a series that popped out in arcades in the early 90s before making its way over to consoles. These were usually fast-paced, colorful, donning a crazy Namco soundtrack, and some of the tightest drifting you could get. Realism? Nah, drift it, baby. However, none of those games had even a fraction of the style that R4 was packing. The menus, the story mode, the music syncing up to the animations on screen. Ridge Racer 4 was doing stuff years before the competition. You know exactly what game you're playing from any of the menus. The way cars pop out of the trucks in a black background, the heavy use of the color yellow in the interface with the stylistic transitions, the drum and bass menu theme, the soundtrack by the amazing sound team, the hard pixel outline of the course you're about to drive on, a story mode with different careers and paths and detailed character models starting your laps? Yeah, this is real good. And it also helps that Ridge Racer 4 is an absolute blast to play. R4 leans somewhat closer to the arcade appeal as opposed to Gran Turismo taking cars into the more realistic approach, and it's easily one of the best racers on the console. You end up using the first-person view a lot of the time, which shows how advanced some of the lighting was, specifically in tunnels. I might even say that Ridge Racer 4 is still the best in the whole series, is a sentiment a lot of fans seem to also share, as it was the best at blending arcade and realism. Thankfully, it was also a success back in the day, selling a ton of copies, having an 88 on Metacritic, and being ported to digital PlayStation stores multiple times. Ridge Racer 4 and Wipeout XL are both cool classics, both games you should play, and, well, I like them. The big classic PlayStation 1 titles weren't always denoted by the greatest hits label. Electronic Arts' Future Cop LAPD is a tight top-down third-person shooter where you embark into the crime war in Los Angeles as a transforming mech warrior. Literally the coolest concept ever, and a solid game on both PC and PlayStation 1. It was originally going to be another entry in the Strike series, Future Strike, joining games like Desert and Jungle Strike, Sans Helicopter. Instead, it evolved into what you see, and well, it's hard to argue. Future Cop may not get the praise of other PlayStation 1 exclusives, but it sure is worth a shot. Look, we've got a lot of mega hits on this console. Acquire's Violent Tenchu 1 and 2 helped to define the stealth genre with some ninja sleuthing. Games I wasn't allowed to play because my parents took one look at that cover, turned to 8-year-old me and said no, but have been awesome in retrospect. Also, how could I make a cool PlayStation 1 games video without mentioning Cool Borders? Specifically Cool Borders 2. It's just okay these days. There's a certain learning curve to pick up the systems if you're more used to SSX or modern snowboarding control systems, but the whole package is incredibly memorable. Yo, check out my sick trick. We could honestly name a whole bunch, a lot of which we've talked about in the past. Ace Combat 2 is amazing. Omega Boost, is Polyphony's incredible sci-fi FMV mech shooter that feels just as good in 2025. Einhander is a dope shmup thriving in its late 90s hyper blue doomer futurism. That's German for one-hander, or a one-handed sword? Whatever, look at the thing, it's sick. Look at it in Kingdom Hearts, it's still sick. And speaking of, we haven't even touched on the plethora of Japanese RPGs. A lot of people, and by people I just mean me, consider the PlayStation 1 to be the golden era of Japanese RPGs. You can play things of any kind of flavor. The foresty monster collection of Jade Cocoon, the Arc of the Lad collection from Working Designs containing 3 strategy RPG classics. There's Kodelka if you want a survival horror twist on the genre, as well as Threads of Fate for a little bit of Squaresoft experimentation. Seriously, this one's super underrated. But when I think of cool classics for JRPGs with games that may or may not be as notable as Final Fantasy, I think of The Legend of Dragoon. Developed in-house by Sony Computer Entertainment Japan, The Legend of Dragoon was PlayStation's big swing at creating their old Final Fantasy. I mean, it was practically advertised as such. It's everything a 10-year-old could have wanted in 2000. It's the multi-disc JRPG to consume all of my summer. It's rolled up with a bunch of 90s anime inspiration while also turning the entire cast into a Power Rangers squad of color-coded dragoons. Basically Ronin warriors. It's got a story that dabbles in everything. Political intrigue, romance, complicated relationships, and loss. It's got this active combat system in an RPG that we hadn't really seen at that point, where you need to mash through timed QTEs in order to do full attacks. And since this had voice acting, that means repetitive one-liners.
Go! Crash dance! Crash dance! Volcano!
The Legend of Dragoon follows Dart, the dude who almost made it into the PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, rest in peace, as he journeys through the high fantasy world Indinus. The story is gripping the entire time, with certain tragedies sticking in my head to this day, and it helps that you could tell Sony was pumping a massive budget into this thing. Visually, it was stunning, and the cutscenes rivaled Squaresoft's, which was really the biggest issue here. The Legend of Dragoon could not help but be compared to Final Fantasy in just about every aspect. RPGs were becoming one of the most oversaturated genres on the PlayStation 1, with dozens of really solid releases every year. Just for RPGs in the year 2000 alone, we got Final Fantasy IX, Grandia 2, Dragon Warrior 7, Breath of Fire 4, Paper Mario, Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, Skies of Arcadia, and several others. Suddenly, The Legend of Dragoon is just another good game in a sea of excellence, which caused the reviews of the time to basically be like, yeah, it's a pretty cool Japanese RPG, which, to be fair, it was also one of the slower ones. XP rates can be abysmal, inputting the combat QTEs gets incredibly repetitive. The encounter rate is high, and combat animations are slow. A single encounter can take ages, which has me hitting the frame skip button in modern replays. It's just long wind-up animations. Final Fantasy VII had this solved years prior. However, just like every other RPG ever, the meat is in the whole package. The world is fascinating, the characters are gripping. I had a crush on Rose as a kid, and yeah, not much has changed. It's the game where you get a party of dudes transforming into magical dragon armor to get more powerful. That's about as cool as it gets. The Legend of Dragoon is available on PlayStation 4 and 5 with a digital version, but honestly, I think this needs a proper HD remaster with a few quality of life upgrades. Give us speed up, more XP, faster animations, and suddenly that 50-hour RPG becomes a 30-hour 10 out of 10 good time. 30 hours of
Hammer spin!
And so there you have it, a bunch of cool PlayStation 1 games, because I was feeling a little nostalgic. There's actually like a ton more I wanted to tackle with this video, like the list was 3 or 4 times longer than what we just talked about, so, you know. If you liked it, let me know, we'll definitely do more of these. I was originally thinking Mega Man Legends, since we've never actually covered it, but it was getting a little too long in the tooth, and so I guess, once again, Mega Man Legends is canceled. If you liked today's video, check out the sponsor Titan Mattress to get yourself a night of sleep. It's been great for me. You can also support the channel directly via Patreon, buy a t-shirt over at the Pixel Empire, or just keep watching the videos. Share it with a friend, leave a comment for the nasty algorithm, or check back in a few weeks because I gotta finish Anthem before it shuts down. Anyways, I'm gonna head out for now. I've been Austin, and I'll catch you guys next time when we embark on our yearly quest. Thank you all so much for watching. Special Patreon shout out to Benna Oswald, Blackfoot Ferret, Blake Thomas, Cheeks, Clark Fox, Chris Shelton, DX Buster, Dylan Snyder, Fragile Traveler, Hey Quiggles, Jay Roos, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Kevin Zanowski, Nocturnal Nix, Pierre, Platinum Rose, Pacha Bear, Rare Find It, Ryan Siri, and Vox. Thank you all so much for your generous support. Honestly, after my last few videos, I've just been feeling really nostalgic with games, and going back and playing some of this old PlayStation stuff, it's been great. However, now I'm gonna be playing a lot on 117 and maybe Demon School because it's time for some new games. And also, what are some bad games this year? I've been avoiding them. Let me know in the comments. I'll catch you guys next time. Bye bye.